You talked about the internship, and I think that was a really significant suggestion. Why restrict it to just rural areas? Because I find that we perhaps have the best laws in theory, but in practice, we fall very short in terms of both awareness as well as in practice. So why not make this a compulsory part of legal education everywhere?
You are right, it should not be confined to rural sectors. I just gave an example. Why? Because in rural sectors, the opportunities are lesser and lesser. So therefore, the exposure of that rural population to something what you could normally call processes of court, study of law, or being aware of legal principles is definitely lesser. It's not as if that there are no poor in urban areas. It can certainly be extended everywhere. I just put emphasis on the rural sector. That's just about all.
Coming back to the idea that we perhaps have the best laws in theory, especially when it comes to women, I think we have some of the most progressive laws. But when it comes to the actual practice, we fall very, very short. Would you agree with that?
Yes, you are right. There was a proposal which was mooted by, and the matter is still under consideration. The proposal was mooted by Ministry of Child and Women Development. And according to them, there must be what is called an officer to be deployed at every district and maybe at a future level, at every tehsil level, so that the population in the surrounding areas feel confident that there is somebody, a nodal officer who can be approached in case of any doubts, in case of any kind of emergent situations. So such a proposal is something which is of great dimension and significance. I'll just tell you, we have now advocated that on the same lines as public prosecutor's office in every district, let there be legal aid defense counsel office in every district. There are about 780 odd districts in the country. We have started with 350 districts, so almost half of that. There will be a regular legal aid defense counsel system, one chief counsel to be assisted by 3 or 4 assistant counsels. So my proposal to ministry was that one of them could be a lady advocate who can be a nodal officer in case any female population living in that particular district wishes to come. And there is an element of confidence when you come out with certain kind of harassment or maybe areas. And that's the reason why such an arrangement will be more conducive. So it will serve not only the purposes of legal aid, but at the same time, some of the social ideas which are advocated by legislation such as Domestic Violence Act.
That's true. For instance, you have the Anganwadi workers who, have made such enormous strides in education and health at the village level. Can we not have something similar in terms of a legal aid officer at the village level?
Of course, yes. There are, as of now, there are what is called paralegal volunteers.
Yeah.
And some of these Asha Anganwadi workers are part of the regular, the stream who work as paralegal volunteers. Some of the law students, some of the retired civil servants, they also share that responsibility. But as a regular kind of machinery, it is better to have machinery with some status. And if this works, then perhaps I think there will be one nodal officer in every district who can take care of any such complaints. Asha workers and Anganwadi workers, of course, have certain other areas of operation.
Yes.
Their duties are slightly different,
Yeah.
Anganwadi. But on the legal front, if there is a dedicated officer who can always be available, that should serve the purpose.
So, when you began in the profession, things were, of course, very different. India was a different country. 37 years in the Supreme Court. Why did you choose to become a judge rather than remain a lawyer? Far more lucrative it would have been, I guess. So, maybe
These are
for
these are
young
completely.
young law students, uh, what would you, what prompted you to choose becoming a judge?
See, of course, yes, money is definitely required for every human individual to survive, to thrive in the society. But after a point, that loses significance in life. As they rightly say, if you have a good son, why do you require dhan sanchay? Correct? If you have a bad son, then again, why do you require dhan sanchay? Because he is going to fritter away everything. Correct?
Daughter as well.
Yes, yes, anybody. What I mean to say
Child.
is this. So ultimately, after a point, that loses significance. So therefore, then you need something which gives you satisfaction, which gives you, at the end of the day, you feel satisfied that yes, I did something. That's how I accepted. Today, my third innings has begun where I am now visiting professor in some of the law colleges.
I believe
So
also
therefore,
Sastra, you delivered a lecture.
Sastra, yes, delivering one lecture is not. I am now regularly visiting professor in 2 or 3 institutions. So therefore, that's what I intend to give back to the society.
But one hears of the Supreme Court only when there is a controversy. There is a controversial judgment or there's a controversial case. The Collegium, of course, is something that I have to ask you about. We cannot have a conversation about law these days without asking about the Collegium. You spent, 74 days
Yes,
as
as
Chief
Chief
Justice. Did you ever feel the pulls and pressures of the executive on you?
Time is only 3 minutes now.
Enough for you to answer this question.
Okay.
Do you get midnight calls saying,
Not at
perhaps
all.
this judgment could
Not
be
at
this
all.
way?
Not at all. Not at all. See, as Chief Justice, you are, apart from being a judge, the additional mantle that you put on is being the administrative head of what is called the listing. The listing is one part. Determining the composition of benches is one part. And what kind of benches should we have is also another.
Should they
I'll tell you, yeah,
reflect
that's right.
diversity,
Yes, that's right.
inclusiveness?
Never in the history of Supreme Court, more than 2 constitution benches had ever sat together. In my tenure of 74 days, I simply went by the mathematical calculation. We were 30 judges to begin with. I divided 30 by 5 and said that there are possible 6 constitution bench combinations. And in my time, all 6 benches were constituted. And at a time, on a particular day, 3 constitutions benches were sitting together simultaneously. So therefore, that's one function which the Chief Justice is definitely having the prerogative. According to him, he may constitute benches, list the matters, so therefore that's his prerogative. The second prerogative on the administrative side is, of course, the collegium meetings.
Yeah.
So he is the one who calls a meeting, makes a proposal as to who shall be the judges, etc. On neither of these 2 fronts, I have had any kind of, either instructions or even remote or even indirect suggestions coming from the executive at any juncture.
Do you have any regrets
On what front?
on things that you had set out to achieve?
Not at all. No regrets
Because
at
you
all.
had listed 3 priorities when you had taken over.
I had said that, number one, because there were many matters which were lying without getting listed. See, what happens is, especially during COVID times, we had, our disposal had taken a back seat. We were more into sort of, making ourselves available through virtual mode.
Yeah.
What happens in virtual mode is that a matter which is capable of being disposed of in 3 minutes may take 10 minutes. Because there are communication defects, there are communication gaps. So our disposal, which was 60 matters a day on Mondays and Fridays, which are miscellaneous days, had come down to almost 30, 35. That left tremendous gap between the filing of the matters and the disposal. So we were on the negative side so far as disposal is concerned. So one priority which I said was listing of all matters,
Yeah.
disposal to be more than the filing,
And also transparency.
transparency, and that is why more and more constitution benches. And not just constitution benches, like one typical example is the death sentence matters where somebody has been awarded death sentence and the appeals are pending in Supreme Court come before a bench of 3 judges. The normal practice in Supreme Court is to have 1, or at best 2, or at best 3 judges of combinations of 3. With the result, all these death sentence matters must get listed only before such combinations. And it becomes somewhat, the judges also are human beings. So after a while, they entertain feeling of fatigue. That how many death sentence matters am I supposed to deal with, correct? So that's how when I constituted 6 constitution bench combinations, I said, constitution bench requires 3 plus 2. So those 3 judges combination will have all matters including death sentence matters. So therefore, I doubled up the benches. With the result, many death sentence matters were also listed, disposed of. And it is a part of constitutional jurisprudence now that death sentence matters, if there be delay, then that may afford a ground for the person concerned to have the death sentence commuted to imprisonment for life. So our procedural delay should not afford any kind of ground, and the sooner we dispose of the matters, one way or the other, whether you affirm or you don't affirm, but the matters must be disposed of. That's how.
As we can see, time's up, we're told. There's so much else that we needed to talk about, but perhaps some, yes. Of course. It's your prerogative.
You are the organizer, sir. My time is up. I am. Yes, sir.
Is there any change which
I'll take, if you permit, I'll take about 10 minutes to explain this.
No. You can't.
No, this is not something which can be, if you just ask me one single sentence, is there a need to change? No. Okay. Now, if you want the reasons, give me 10 minutes.
that will be too much.
Spoken like a true lawyer. All the law students at the back, this is how you have to function. Thank you so much for being such a sport.
One hand which is getting raised in that corner.
If you promise to ask the question in half a second, he'll promise to answer in 1 second. Yeah, quickly.
Hi, this is Jweria. I'm a journalist with edX. So recently, NLU Delhi hiked their fee. It was a massive hike percentage, almost 80% hike. The students said that this will push them towards corporate law. They'll take loans, etc., to pay off their fees. Do you believe that public institutions of law should be protected from such hikes in fee that we are seeing in a lot of public institutions in other fields
I
as
think
well?
we've got. Thank you.
I used to be part of the governing council of National Law School, Bangalore, and this is a typical question which always the administration is sort of called upon to decide. There are so many trained professionals whose services are engaged as professors. Naturally, very handsome amounts are paid to those professors. So as compared to my days when there used to be just about few professors and my learning was actually in the court of law, today the colleges function right from 8 o'clock till almost about 7 o'clock in the night. So therefore that's the law course, people are engaged and they are paid very handsome fees. So therefore the establishment costs are tremendously on the rise. Naturally, where do they get the money from? The money can be only through one source, which is the fees. The second source, unfortunately, that is not what is presently the colleges or the institutions are banking on. I had gone once to IIT Bombay and they say there is a practice that after completing 25 years, the class then pulls in money and makes a handsome donation to the alma mater.
Yeah, I think they should do that. The lawyers can afford to do it.
I think, that's a wonderful tradition that we can follow. And as lawyers, if we start making that donation, which comes up every year from a different batch, that will actually put in the college with a lot of resources at its command, and that will help giving some relief to the students concerned. But what concern that you have raised is definitely a matter to be flagged, yes.
Thank you so much.
Sir, one more question. Here, sir.
No, sir, I'm so sorry, I missed the first part of your question.
I think if you can appeal 10 top Supreme Court lawyers, give only 10% of the income donation. That will be enough to run the entire legal system, I think.
The entire
Very
legal
well.
framework
Very
of
well,
this
very well. I take the point and I'll certainly, work in that direction, yes.
Justice Lalit, one more question.
Sure.
So recently, with respect to the elevation of lawyer from Delhi and Madras, there was this talk about the judicial bias. So how judges bring down the judicial bias or prejudice to ensure non-partisanship? Is there any routine or SOPs which you follow?
See, again, your question is directed at the Collegium system. I can't answer this question unless you give me 10 minutes.
I think we'll have to have a separate interview with him on that. Thank you so much. We've
Thank you
completely
so much.
run out of time. But
And
hope we can
I
have-
must say that, this is my first exposure to ThinkEdu. I enjoyed this session perhaps as much as you enjoyed listening to this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.